Okay, this is episode 6 of Fistful of Fuckery, season 3. We have, I think, pretty much 7 more ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's an endurance race. But somebody suggested something. They said, you're kind of recording ahead. Well, I was. 5 changed that. So I'm recording kind of in real time. This will be released this Sunday coming up. This is another 3 movies lost in the 21st century. Kind of. Like, some people remember this stuff. And it was weird because I was doing research on some of these films. Because I had to go through a large list of different stuff. And I'm kind of looking for stuff that was genuinely good. And what was weird is they kind of fell by the wayside. Right? You're like, this film came out. I remember watching it. I remember liking it a lot. And I would talk to other people about it, and a lot of people didn't see it. And I was kind of surprised by that. Then I realized there's a lot of these films, right? Gems of the 21st century. And I started questioning how this possibly happened. Now, I'm trying a new vocal thing. And a lot of it had to do with the furnace and all that stuff. Like, so I'm like, let's try to figure out how to pacify that as best as possible. So I'm not sure what your feelings are about this. We'll try it on for an episode. Why not? Actually, the second half might not even be sounding the same because I record them at 2 different times. So in which way? So I realized I think millennials did drop the ball. I mean, I keep looping in the first 2 episodes because I really wanted to start the season off with those 2 episodes. And realizing there's a variety of different generations, not just boomers and young people. I don't even factor in boomers. They're about to heave hold of their fucking mortal coil. For the most part, they're so far up there and it doesn't really matter. Like, what they say to me doesn't matter. They can give me pieces of history. Cool, that's dope. I can go with that. But for the most part, your values, your morals, and the way you perceive the world prior to a certain point in time doesn't mean shit to me. And that's the truth. I realize I'm speculating to you again that this is Generation W, which is between 64 to 66 to about 74, 76, right? Transition piece. And the actual Gen X doesn't show up until like the mid-70s. This also retools the whole Zillennial thing. Because I genuinely think the Zillennials, they're currently called right now, really were kind of lost. Because they remember history differently. Because there was a different style of culture prior to this shift. Millennials, I think, dropped the ball. Because I don't think they got the understanding of why we do things a certain way. I think they got the watered down version of the commercial. You know, like when you listen to those commercials that parody famous songs and they change out the words because they just bought the rights to the song and given the royalties to the person or some weird fucking business hand deal. And they take the song and they kind of gut the song and fill with their own fucked up lyrics, but yet keep the chorus. They watch that, listen to that, and think to themselves, you know what? I like that song. But they don't listen to the original. So they base everything off. It's like the shitty Kid Rock song. Most of Kid Rock stuff is just fucking boring as shit. But the shitty Kid Rock stuff, the one that he like, you know what? I want to rip off both Warren Zevon. They probably got paid. And Leonard Skinner. And this song onto the air. So people are familiar with it, but they're not familiar with it. Like, it's another bag of shit. Like the Uncle Cracker thing, the fucking the cover he did from the 70s. I can't remember the name of the song right now. Like, I don't want to fucking hear that. Like, what are you doing? You know, and he's like, well, I'm done. Whatever. You think it's art. I think it's bullshit. Right? Your whole fucking gimmick seems like bullshit to me. But that's just my interpretation of it. And everybody has an interpretation, right? Everybody has an opinion. Opinions are like assholes. We all have one. If we don't, that's a big problem right there. So anyway, so I was selecting these films for this episode, which is going to be in the B block. And I realized millennials dropped the ball because the culture we were building. So those of you that don't know, right? And I know I've probably said this, and again, there's certain things that are going to be reiterated because I genuinely believe this. And there's enough stuff supporting it in my speculation of this that it gives it weight. So it's like when somebody says to me, hey, you know, with Nirvana, they changed. Nirvana was the last piece. Like, if you really want to understand how this all worked, there was an underground, but the underground was not as deeply structured as it is now. It's kind of forcibly now done now. 98 changed that, right? And I think they missed that. This is the generation that was kind of coddled, and there's a whole different parental directive based on whatever was going on at the time. And I realized that that they really kind of lost that piece. They missed the genuine aspect of it, and I don't even think it's all of them. I just think as an overall whole. Because what happened is in the late 90s, everything was still going relatively well. I told you, 98 was a big year, right? And all of a sudden, by 2000 to 2005, the things that should have been supported were not. They had a hard time gaining a return, meaning that the directors, the writers, the films, the arts weren't being as focused on as much. They missed the meaning. Like, you're supporting the artist because you like the artist, right? Isn't that not the mechanics of it? Like, the Coen brothers, like, what surprised the shit out of me. Again, I was looking through a lot of films. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Made money, but it didn't make as much money as you'd think it would have made. Like, to me, that's an interesting fucking film. Actually, most Coen brothers films, like, even the shittiest Coen brothers film, right, is still really good. Like, it's different quality, right? Even the fact that they're split right now, they're doing two different types of films. I'll still watch both of them. Why? Because I really like the work they did together. And I figured whatever they're doing separately will just develop into something different. Right? That's my thinking. I'm a Gen Xer. So my thinking is that. But for some reason, again, the millennials like, well, I know Tarantino and I know, like, Spike Lee and, you know, but do you? Do you know to actually go seek these films out? Do you know to find new directors? And I think that's what a cutoff is. Because understand, millennials would have been popping out, Mom, around the time right before the Great Whitewash in America. So they only had this really weird caveat. It's a hybrid because they're seeing what appeals to Gen Xers, but they're really not seeing the full thing. It's like when they see the videos, they think, I know I have to go to a gym and work the fuck out and, like, be, like, combative and, like, just brazen. Like, it's a parody onto the mainstream pop culture, right? It's the one that actually likes Boondock Saints 2 versus the Boondock Saints. Never actually seen Boondock Saints, right? It's a very strange fucking world. And I don't think they deliberately did it. I just think this is how they interpreted it. Like, I talked to younger millennials now, and I'm realizing there's a lot of information they don't have. And again, a few years ago, I was in the middle of writing something, right? So a few years ago, my wife got on the whole concept of me doing this, right? But I was like, okay, this is a foolish idea. Like, I'm not sure if I want to do something like this, right? And a lot of it was because of the feedback and reactions people would have to me, right? I'm like, I'm not doing anything unusual. I'm just sharing information. Like, we'll talk about stuff. Like, there's a back and forth. But then there's a point where people were like, I don't know any of this. How the fuck do you know all this? Because I grew up. I paid attention. It's like the first time I brought one of my kids to a fucking record store. The kid didn't know what to do with himself. He's thinking, well, I have some money, but I don't know what I'm looking at. I said, find things you like. Like, go through them. I mean, they're not extremely expensive. You have a taste in music. I mean, the only thing the store was missing was a record player or a CD player to actually listen to the album, right? But you can pull stream stuff at the time. So if you needed to do that, we could have done that. But he was like, I don't understand this. Like, why are you showing me how to... Because this is digging. This is the one aspect of digging, right? These mom and pop shops, these record shops, these used stores, these comic shops, these movie shops, like, they're important because they're archiving things. And I don't think he understood that. And I realized, while looking through all these films, I think a lot of the millennials just were not aware of this. So by the time it gets to the, my kids are Gen Zers, so they're like, what? Like, and this leads to a topic right now, right? And this is, initially I didn't have an ABOC. I had something like crazy to say. And my block right now is about this topic, which I'm kind of leading into. And there will be talk about Absolute Batman. Because that's out of pocket right now. And I know I ended the last episode about that, but I'm like, this is interesting. Because it's hitting a point where the 10th printing is about to happen. And people are seeking out the annual printing. So, give me a second with that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with it. I'm just going to address it. So, I've heard this from a few people. Now, Gen Z is like roughly 26 to 27. That's the oldest one. So they're like 98, around the time everything changed, right? It's 98, 99, 2000 is when they kind of exist. Alpha already existed post, they're 21st century kids, genuine 21st century kids, right? And if anybody's listening to this, it happens to be Generation Alpha, which I really doubt, but hey, fuck it, I don't know. I just swore. Is your mom says head gonna explode? Dad, you're gonna fucking have to, hunt me down? I don't know. Like, does the word fuck matter anymore? Like, are we still, like, priming things like, we can't be swearing? I don't know. Swearing is an action. It also punctuates it, makes things work mechanically, right? I do it. I'm from New England. Like, you have so much bullshit you deal with, you have to swear, right? So, that's the oldest. The youngest is like 15, 16, 14, somewhere around that. Like, because it's like 98 to like 2008, 2009, 2010. Like, it's somewhere around that. So I guess the youngest one would be maybe 15 right now. So that's the spread. So they're coming into adulthood. The older ones are now in their last stage of maturation. So they're, most of the brain is developed. But there's a lot of information younger millennials, and they do not know. So somebody's mentioned this, like, I don't ask those questions. Well, why don't you ask those questions? Why is, again, going back to episode 1 and 2, why are Generation X and Generation W not educating these kids? You know what you loved. You know the information you have. And you know that the people that's creating the modern art, at some point in time, loved that material too. So the question is, why aren't we passing this along? Why aren't we passing the genuine fucking American culture along, but we're allowing them to McDonaldize it and fucking package it in a very strange way, right? McDonaldization is actually a fucking term used by sociologists, right? So why are we allowing the packaging and the reselling and the filtering, right? Like, I keep telling you, tangible movies. The now worry right now, the hustle right now, and again, I'm not 100% sure on this. I need to read a fucking article about this because somebody was talking to me about it. Like, really, that's a thing? They're like, yeah, they're trying to get rid of a lot of the old comedies, or at least edit them. And I remember Blockbuster. those motherfuckers, right? Very, like, we're holier than thou. Fuck Blockbuster, right? Everybody's like, but you don't understand, it saved me, yeah? Because you're in the middle of fucking nowhere. That's why it saved you. Okay? You should have probably hit the Suncoast. And even then, or hit something else up. The mom and pop that should have fucking allowed, but you allowed Blockbuster to eat them up, right? Because I'll be real with you. The mom and pop shops were better. Hollywood was an alternative, but even then, Hollywood Video was an alternative, but even then, now granted, I'm saying this right now, like almost like with vigor, but I really wish video stores still existed because it's different, right? Suncoast doesn't. I haven't seen Suncoast now. It's like shit. FYE and local to me just recently started getting music again. That's fucking insane. So anyway, which way? So Blockbuster back in the day decided to edit films, like Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel, right? You couldn't get the normal original cut version of that. You got the Blockbuster special version of that, right? And there's several films like that. But okay, so arguably, well, what about Boondock Saints? I got it from Block. Okay, I see your point there. But still, like you're going back to edit things. Now, this right here, the whole idea of just everything streaming, like being on the streaming teat, right, allows them to alter whatever the fuck they want to alter and cut whatever the fuck they want to cut. The tangible products. And the problem is, it's weird. Okay, I experienced this for myself. The Goonies is a Gen X film. It's a fucking great film. We honestly weren't sure if there was going to be a sequel, but there ended up being a video game, and that thing was absolutely fucking insane. It took a long time to fucking break down, but it was a cool video game. I think it was original NES. So anyway, so you had this movie come out, and it had influences. And here's weird. The movie, if I remember correctly, some kids had seen the version with an octopus. And you're like, but the documentary tells me that, hey, some people seen this. Because I remember somebody hearing about it years ago. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? The version I seen didn't have no fucking octopus. But it did have extended scenes in the water and the whole Willy thing. I ended up buying it. I want to say it was in VHS, and it was for a reasonable price, but it was remastered. So it was reissued sometime, I want to say it was like maybe 98, 99. And then I watched it and I realized this movie is fucking short. I don't remember this movie being this short. And all of us were talking about scenes that were cut out. And like, what the fuck? What happened? Right? And that was on a physical, tangible copy. Eventually they released it like fully on DVD at some point in time. And that was like maybe the lord of DVD. Honestly, DVD is better because you don't have as many fucking magnetic tape issues. Somebody would argue otherwise, though. Like, I'm pretty sure of it. I mean, I'm not sure if the whole cassette thing and fucking VHS thing is a real thing. To me, it seems more novelty. Records never went away. Like, that's the thing. They kind of minimized the amount of releases. And if you look through histories of different artists, especially respectable artists, like ones that like genuinely had fan bases, not artificial fan bases, you would see that there were records, vinyl releases, limited prints, so on and so forth. So they never necessarily went away. I like record players. So CDs were the next evolution of that to a certain degree. And actual CDs are done well. Like when you, not the copies and the shitty fucking cheap versions later on, but the original versions. I mean, shit, I had a copy of The Breeder's Last Splash. I could pretty much, I think somebody shot it, and that thing still worked. That's how fucking crazy it was, right? But that's a thing. That's an active thing. So somewhere along the line, millennials dropped the ball. Now, one thing that took place that kind of threw me off, and somebody mentioned this. They said, well, if I'm in a class and somebody's teaching something, I won't necessarily ask questions. And I said to him, why? I said, that's the whole purpose of you being there. Like, if so you're in a conversation with somebody and somebody says something, why when you ask them a question, is it considered rude? Is that the reason why you don't do it? And then the person said, no, I just don't want to get harassed by the other students. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, so I remember this being an issue earlier on. Like, this was a transitional issue. Now, there's traces of anti-intellectual thinking in this world. And it's kind of embroidered into the way you perceive the world, right? Like, those bad 80s fucking films. Now, here's what's interesting about 80s films, is the one-man army thing is a big crock of shit, okay? You may have one guy do a lot of damage to a bunch of different people, but they're not dealing with 500 people. It's just not happening, or 50 people. Like, it's not happening. But it's an echo of the 70s. And a lot of the films in the 70s really kind of had the man with the plan, or people gathering together to help a situation out, like the Peckinpah films and Wild Bunch and all that stuff. Like, the 80s films were like this really weird cartoonish version of those, right? And in those films, it was always the dichotomy of like the weak intellectual or smart kid, or the geek, or like, and there's always this angry tough guy. And what's weird is the angry tough guy is like, you're telling me this person didn't learn anything in this world. Everything's instinctually perfect for them, period. Hands down. That is a crock of shit too. Like, the tough guy, like the genuine ones that were genuinely fucked up, are the ones that used to get the shit beat out of them by their parents. Bad shit. Like, they're just regurgitating hate they learned from home. Okay? Now, every so often you have the one that's maniacal and is genuinely a villain from birth. But they're in the margins. Okay? So even the tough guy learned something. It's just the one that was like learning to work on cars. There's still an intellectual component to that. People do need to learn, regardless of whatever. Now, what they're choosing to learn, like, I don't need to learn this, so you should shut up about it. Well, then you can tune the fuck out, right? And that was my argument when I was growing up. Like, I don't give a fuck. You know, if this shit interests me, I want to find out more. Now, the only caveat to that is if everybody's run down, it's like last period, and it's fucking, they're tired and they want to just kind of get done, or the person promised them like a treat or something to that effect. Okay, I'm going to comply. I'm going to shut the fuck up. And the reason why is because if I had something interesting to ask, right, I'll probably ask the teacher after the fact, or the next class, right? But not saying anything. And they're like, well, you can always Google it. No, Google is structured weird. You know this. You can always search it up. The internet is not the database of databases. There's books that exist that I'm hoping a bunch of people tap into at some point in time to rechannel that information through. Okay? Books exist solely for a purpose. And they come in and out of print for a reason. And the internet doesn't necessarily give all that data. Sometimes, however, it does simplify it and give you a primer. And that's probably the best example I can say about that. But the idea alone is like, if you walk it through, why are we even... So during COVID, the crisis of kids' education seemed to be angry lack of daycare rather than their education. The only ones that seemed to be upset about education were the evangelicals, the Christian right. They're like, our kids can't be reading books about homosexuality or anything different from our way of looking at things. We must take everything down. Like, again, the same bullshit that happens every so often. The goal is to reduce information and critical thinking. So, if Gen Z is just passively going along and not necessarily questioning it in the classroom in real time, that's weird, right? And then you could consider the parameters of how much teacher will teach, which is the other problem. So the classroom has become kind of somewhat dysfunctional to a certain degree. I still think learning is taking place, but I don't think kids realize the gift of it. I grew up in a really fucked up school system, so the idea of genuinely good education was a hot commodity. And what became problematic for me is I gained interest in stuff that was not being taught. And that's the thing. A lot of it just comes from curiosity. Like, why did this happen because of that? Right? And you talk to older people, different people, and you're like, oh, okay, so this took place before this, so this influenced this. And now it's me saying the same shit. This is an interesting thing. Like, so the paralysis of not being able to ask the question. Question is a power. Okay, can you ask a stupid question? Yes. Right? So can a teacher come in the classroom and say, okay, there's no stupid questions. Ask them. And then somebody says, blah, 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 blah. That's a stupid question. And the person's like, you told me I can ask a question. Now you understand the first lesson of hypocrisy. Right? But truthfully, all questions are important because you're sensing and trying to understand your form of clarity. Right? How you process information and how the person, the fella or the woman or the female or the whatever, the bear on the side of you is processing information, then it's not the same. Right? Like a good example, like if you're reading a book and you talk about the book and you process the information as you're talking about the book, that's very helpful. Right? If a few of you are reading a book and you process the scenes, it's very helpful. Like I was recently around people watching film, and a lot of the younger people seem to be disconnected from it. They really want to watch the online, like just snippets of just random information. And I'm like, but the first way of watching a film is like you're watching it for the entertainment, for the things that make you feel a certain kind of way and understand the point of view of information. Now, the ones who've been doing this for a while have it since they get more savvy about what they're looking at. Right? Like when I seen Jordan Peele's Nope, I walked out of that theater just elated. Like, this is a really good film. And I'm, people are with me like, why? And I said, trying up a lot of the reasons. One of the things that hit me really hard was the trauma thing. And I thought that was really cool because the person's still wedging the line because of whatever guilt, trip, survivor's guilt. That's in that film. It's not brazenly said, but it's there. And that's really good. Now, I'm going to say this to you, especially if you're younger. Ask the questions. If somebody uses an acronym and you know what the fuck the acronym means, ask the questions. You know what? If somebody's like eyeballing you, eyeball them back. It is what it is. If you need to know, you need to know. If you don't feel comfortable doing the group setting, which I can kind of understand that, whatever anxiety. I mean, there's a lot of chaos in the world, so I can kind of understand that. Ask the teacher after the fact. You can always ask. It's always helpful to ask. Because you're picking the person's brain. You're trying to understand the data resource. And maybe there's a limitation what they're teaching you. Or it's designed in such a way it's just a nugget of information. And there's probably a larger vault there. Again, I'm not sure what you get from this. If you're one of the listeners listening to this, I just ramble like I'm a fucking lunatic sometimes. And I'm aware of that. But at the same point in time, I am trying to present information in a way that makes sense to me. And I know what the whole feedback comment thing I don't like. Because I don't give a fuck. Really? Because most of the time it's just shit. Like, I don't care. Okay? I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and that's pretty much about the piece of it. If you like it, like it. If you like what I'm fucking doing, tell other people. If you don't like what I'm doing, tell other people. Why? So they can say, wow, this is a piece of shit. And I'm fine with that. But the things I'm doing are for a skeleton reason. And I'm explaining to you like the difference between speculation and conspiracy theory. Like, why did I do that? Because you needed to understand one is still evolving. The other one's just using tons of imagination and just jumping to conclusions, like the guy from the fucking Office Space thing. Well, that's my fucking present. That's what I'm doing. Jump to conclusions. So that's what that. So take in consideration, Gen Z does have a problem with the questions. And it also might lead into that stare. And that stare existed before them. It's just a stare. Like, I don't know, anxiety stare. Like, I don't know how to interact or what to do after the fact. It is what it is. I ran into it years ago. So them noticing, old people noticing it now, or people noticing it now, our cultures kind of went sideways. Shit. What is it? Venezuela is basically potentially our Poland, which is fucking insane. But again, everything's sideways. Do I agree with that? No, absolutely not. Just for clarity. Like, if it wasn't for my sarcasm, my clarity is I don't agree with that. However, we were doing that already. And again, lost history. It goes with chain supply. And at some point in time, I will cover that. In a thin structure, give you names, give you places, give you times, you go read the fucking books. Why? Because the only way to get the information fully and deeply is to choose hot media, not some guy spouting some shit at you. Okay, so like I said to you, absolute Batman. Adjust myself right now. Okay, there is a book called All In, and I'm gonna best surmise the situation. Darkseid wants the lady to be beaten. He does. This is water. Give me a second. So he wants to lay a beating down on the DC universe. So he does some crazy shit. And I'm not going to explain any of it to you. Why? Because I want you to seek this out. This absolute Batman, again, I don't think the book's worth as much as they're saying it's worth, but I do know it's very popular. It's climbing the zeitgeist as we know it. Bringing the other titles with it. Because mind you, Wonder Woman's equally as good. Superman, it's alright. Green Lantern, it's alright. Martian Manhunter's fucking insane. Flash is kind of dope too. Right? So these things exist. But there was a book called All In, which is like this one shot. It's a flip book. Because the story ends at almost a similar origin component. And what's interesting about it is that it's now going up. So at some point in time, DC Animation is going to have to consider doing this as a large-scale animation structure. Let me frame it this way. Up until James Gunn jumping onto the whole thing and him and I can't remember the other guy's name, Matt Reeves, really kind of infiltrating the DC universe and making it more interesting. DC Animation was pushing the weight. Now, they fucked up on Hush. Batman Hush, as an animated piece, is a fucking turd. I implore you to go out to the used record shops, the used fucking bookstores, buy it online for a cheap price. Oh, fuck, you got the cash? Buy the deluxe version. Don't buy the mediocre version, brand new. Buy the deluxe version. Why? Because it's maybe $5 to $10 more, and it's going to be interesting looking. Trust me. So if you're going to shell out the money for the brand new one, why not get the deluxe version, right? But if you can get the used copy, you could probably get the used copy because it's been in print for quite some time. For maybe, I don't know, like $7 to $11 for a used copy. It's 12 issues. It's Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee. Jim Lee is fucking like a big deal fucking artist for Gen Xers, right? He changed the books. Him and McFarlane and a few other guys. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I don't know why I can't. But they changed the texture. Like, there's a whole documentary about Image comic books. Because they kind of abandoned the ship. They basically said the way, like, we're the artists and we equal similar to writers. I'm like, I kind of agree with you because you're now pacing the structures and making the panels more dynamic. So in which way, this book exists. It's 12 issues and it is fucking a roller coaster, right? Now they did, like, anybody that's read Batman probably might have read that Nightfall, right? When Bane comes in and he fucks up Batman, and Gene Paul comes in, plays Batman, and then becomes Robot Batman or Android Batman. It's fucking strange. It's an interesting story, but here's what's weird. That story spreads itself out for so many fucking issues. So when you go to get it, you're sitting there going, "This is fucking heavy." This story is 12 issues, lean as fuck, and right to the point. It is fucking chaos incarnate. It's one of the best stories I think the Nolan movies came out, so I was like giving people this book to read, and they're like, "This is really cool." I'm like, yeah, and like straight, that's how it was, right? Another point, millennials. Comic book sales dropped, and you're like, why? You know, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're talking to me about comic books. I don't want to. Comic books is the lost medium between film and novels. They do a better job sometimes, actually a good portion of the times. Their elevation of story is higher than television on many occasions. You know, television to a certain degree is kind of co-opted some of the ideas right now of it. So fuck off, right? You like your 300? You like your 300? Guess what? It was a comic book before it was a fucking movie, you fucking Nimrod. Right? That's the truth. Road to Perdition. It was a comic book before it was a movie, right? Actually, one of the movies I'm covering today was a comic book beforehand. Oh no. Oh, you fucking fragile little world might break down because I said something about comic books. It's a medium. It's a great medium. And Will Eisner kind of showed us how to go even farther with it. Raw Comics from Raw Magazine in the 80s fucking went absolutely ape shit with it. Let's show different formats, different ways to tell stories. Different stories to talk about, different subject matters all together, right? Even the weird pornography shit, like the fucking, that was interesting because it was deviating from the norm of what the world you perceive to be, right? So they do this. Getting back to Hush. Hush was a great thing. DC Animated fucked it up. They said, you know what? Let's really just not give them the story. And we'll give them this big fucking turd. Okay? So far with DC Animations, the ones that have part ones and part twos to them are the ones that genuinely are good. Right? They're definitely cramming a lot of data, many issues into this series. Like The Dark Knight Returns and Long Halloween is pretty good. Now, granted, don't get me wrong. There are other titles that are good. But the ones that seem to expand a larger story don't do so. Like, here's what's weird. If Hush was delivered correctly, Under the Red Hood would have made more sense. Under the Red Hood right now, most kids have seen this movie, this animation. Absolutely fucking love it. And what's weird about the animation versus the comic is that the animation gets it right. The comic book has this whole, I may have already mentioned this, weird Superboy Prime punch in the wall of reality thing because it's part of the larger universe because it's leading up to a larger story. I don't give a fuck about that, right? But the animation does a really good job telling the follow-up story to Hush. And you're never given the appropriate version of Hush. Now granted, has DC had to go through the process of showing Superman's death a couple of times? Yes. Do I hope at some point in time they give you a 2-volume version of it? Yes. With that said, Absolute Universe is fucking insane. Right? There's a lot of crazy shit going on because things are not where they should be in this universe. First of all, Darkseid is like God in this universe. Now, that sounds crazy. There is a story leading up to it. Darkseid usurps Spectre's power. Spectre is the fucking god of wrath. Okay? Again, there's a story leading up to it. So how they would do this, the only way I can see them doing this is just releasing maybe these miniseries. The like Absolute Batman miniseries, Absolute Wonder Woman miniseries, and so on and so forth. And then eventually telling you the story backwards. Because when the normal DC universe shows up, they have to address it at some point. Because this book is too popular to not to make this. Now, mind you, unless you're an art freak and you like the comic book art stuff, don't get the 87th print of this. Okay? Don't shell out the fucking $1,000. If you're only in it for the reader, but if you're only in it to read, get the trade paperbacks. Right? Soft cover. If you can get the 12-issue one, spend the money. Right? The story's fucking insane. It definitely changes the context and how you look at the world. I'll give you one example. Wonder Woman is not Thera Mascara. She starts off fucking in hell. Still same birth origin, just not placed where she should have been placed. Batman's, Bruce Wayne's father gets capped. He decides to be a teacher instead of, following the traditional doctor role. So it changes things. Mom still ends up alive. Bruce doesn't have $1 billion trillion, right? So he has to figure out how the motivation to be Batman is there because it's still Bruce Wayne still has the same constitution. Kal-El is a teenager that experienced a whole different thing before he arrived here. Right? The Earth is in subsections because the people that shouldn't be in power are in power. It's upside down. But they're going through it. You're seeing interesting character developments and pivots. And it's still unclear what it means. Because this group of alternate universe superheroes do not know how this all happened. Where the DC superheroes, the proper ones, kind of do, but they don't understand what happened after a certain point. So it's a really interesting gambit of stories. Now, granted, Marvel's Ultimates line is doing a similar story. Not exactly the same. You never have them exactly the same. But that's also interesting too. But the difference between the two is there's a big event that leads up to this. And then the way it's being told is different. Whereas at least Marvel is somewhat like you can grab onto any issues and kind of follow that trace to a clear point. This is, if they do an animated version of this, it's going to have to be done differently. The way it's presented to you is going to have to be done differently. It's going to make you uncomfortable, but here's what's cool. It's they're married to the characters at first, which is their fucking job. And if they follow the feel of the stories, they should do that successfully. Again, check it out. That's as far as I'm going to go with that. Now for the B block, where I talk to you about 3 films that film gems lost in the 21st century. Can I do it better? 21st century. In other words, it was made after 2000 on. And I'm going to cover a history of violence, like I did last time, Moonlight Mile, and Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. And again, I think millennials kind of dropped the ball to a certain degree because we should really be invested in a lot of our culture that we generate here in America. We should be demanding it a lot. So I gotta give you the 3 films, but I'm actually gonna give you probably in like how I ranked them, their order. They're heavy, like they're definitely firmly into these numbers. Now, I do run a film page on Facebook. Actually, I also do the Free Radio America thing. But the ranking system I have is 1 through 10. Anything that's typically above a 7 is worth your time unless noted otherwise. Anything below a 7 is kind of just fucking... You're watching it for a different reason, in my opinion. So, normally, I'll really focus on the top selections. But every so often, I'll grind a bunch of films. Like, today would be one of those days because a lot of these films I had chosen for this particular episode was I haven't seen for a bit, but I remember them in my head. These are good films. So I'll start with number 8, which would be A History of Violence, and this is Viggo Mortensen started a couple of movies around the same time. I don't want to say within a year of each other. I could be fucking wrong though. That's how I remember them. Eastern Promises, which is the crazy fucking bathroom fight, and A History of Violence. And it's interesting because I remember the message in this film, but I don't remember how the film ends. And I thought that was really interesting. So I watched it today. I'm like, wow, it's fucking heavy. I give this a solid 8. This is a very strong 8. Because it could have been a lot more added to the context. Great performances, strong writing. I like the way they present the town. But there was a lot more I felt that could have been presented. It's just me. Doesn't make it a terrible movie. It's a strong 8. So I'd advise you to watch it. I bought it, so that tells you a lot. Usually I'll buy 8s and above easily. 10's guaranteed bought. That's how it is. This was done by David Cronenberg. He was the film director. And to my understanding, this didn't do as well as they expected it to. Now, I'm going to explain the same thing again. And I always use the same person. Bruce Lee still makes lots of money. Films in tangible form are very important. I'm actually going to explain why films are important in a few episodes from now. This is one of those episodes that, hey, I know I gave you a bunch of heavy shit. I'm going to now give you something lighter, right? So, bear with me. So this movie came out, it was like $32 million to make. It made back roughly about 60. And some of these films, you see the budgets are basically the same. I remember the reaction to it being very positive. Both this and Eastern Promises, right? But this has I'm trying to get over, like, if you ever read A Clockwork Orange, not watch the movie, I would like actually someone to redo the movie in the same vein, but have actually the real ending. And the idea of, like, you're making a conscious decision. This is like that character in Clockwork Orange, but not as crazy and eccentric, coming to a conclusion by himself and doing something. You're never given that story fully. You're given hints to it. You know something's changed in this character, and they're lost to a certain degree. Maria Bello and Viggo Mortensen's chemistry in this film is fucking amazing. Ed Harris is just so on fucking point in this material. It's funny because I think it's John Hurt. I always get John Hurt and William Hurt. It's William Hurt, not John Hurt. John Hurt's 1984. William Hurt, I think is weirdly used in this film. He's his brother, but I gave away the film. But it's weird because I'm like, okay, you're playing that role. Maybe you haven't done this yet. Okay, that kind of works. But I'm like, you're so underused in this film. And I'm like, it could have been somebody, I don't know. Essentially, it's unclear, uncertain how this character had already been metamorphosized. So when you're given the film, something has taken place prior to the film beginning. And then when the truth is let out gradually in the film, it has a weight. And the weight at the end of the film suggests such a hard anti-violent theme that the rest of the movie kind of is like triggering for it. It's really interesting. I do advise you to check it out. It did make, again, like the Bruce Lee thing I said, this movie has made money over time. Criterion just recently reissued it. It has a artwork on the cover. It's not holding the gun concept. But the reception of it was really good. But again, we have a culture that at the beginning of the first decade of the 21st century, this is a 21st century film, can easily make this money back for this film. And I'm pretty sure it has. If it wasn't from rentals, I think rentals were still happening at that point in time. And streaming, which is, seemed to be all collecting things. The tangible copies do exist. Again, this is reissued. So this is probably David Cronenberg's one of his most straightforward films. I think they caught shit for it. There's an actually missing scene in the extras, which I watched. I always do that. I'm probably to revisit this again because there's some sequences I just really like how they do. And I give this a strong 8. I do advise you to check this out. It came out in 2005. I do believe. I'm looking at the cover right now. Yeah, it's under 100 minutes. Worth your time. Again, this goes with the list, like the Wonder Boys, the Way of the Gun. Just really good films that have come out in the 21st century that seem to be overlooked. Or just didn't get any feedback at all. It's very strange. Josh Olson also wrote the screenplay for History of Violence. So History of Violence, in my opinion, gets an 8. The next film, they get to a really strong 9. If somebody said that, you know what, this film is a 10 in my category, I'm not going to debate it. Like this, it's a strong film. It's a good film. It came out 2002, I do believe. Again, double checking. Yes, 2002. This is about the novel Unauthorized Chuck Barris. Now, if you don't know who Chuck Barris is, for Generation, what I, again, called W and Generation X, and maybe even some millennials, the Gong Show, the original Gong Show, the host of that, he also put together the Dating Game and Newlywed Game, and he gave America a television wise a reflection onto itself, just like Norman Lear, like we're now going to reflect society, and even its little idiosyncrasies, because some of the stuff that people candidly do on television was absolutely crazy. Alan Funt started doing that stuff with Candid Camera, which is funny because a lot of sociologists actually watch Candid Camera because at the time it was really just unheard of. They just did this stuff. It's not like the fake, like we're gonna have a film crew, make sure you have makeup on. It was just like candidly, here we go. Let's try this. Oh, let's try this social experiment. Chuck Barris claimed to have worked for the CIA. So this movie was pulled out of by well-crafted script from Charlie Kaufman. Charlie Kaufman's a big-time screenwriter, like Robert Town and so on and so forth. This is, I do believe, George Clooney's first movie as a director. He's in the movie. Julia Roberts is in the movie. Actually, Michael Cera is in the movie. He plays, I guess, a young Chuck Barris, which I thought was kind of funny. Maggie Gyllenhaal, Drew Barrymore, but again, at the time, a lot of people don't know who some of these actors were because they weren't established yet. Although I do think Donnie Darko was already out. Yeah, that came out in 2001, and she's in that with her brother. So it's interesting because next film actually has her brother in it. But I give this a strong 9. Again, you can argue a 10. Essentially, what it does, the way the film is crafted is really clever. And I know it has a lot to do with, the punch up or style Clooney wants to establish earlier on. He has a few good films under his belt. There is also I know adaptation to Charlie Kaufman's script with Nicolas Cage, and his style. I'm pretty sure he wrote being John Malkovich, so his style is very like fringe and artsy in presentation. Scene dynamics unfold a certain way. So obviously the screenplay is the blueprint, and I'm pretty sure Clooney just kind of jumped onto that relatively well. There is Rutger Hauer's in it too. He has a great scene, great monologue in the film. So that dynamic exists, meaning that he'll be really in himself. The Chuck Barris character, which is played beautifully by Sam Rockwell. I want to say it's the first time I noticed Sam Rockwell on a film. I could be wrong, but again, I've seen these films in the theaters. I actually went, spent the money, watched them. Said, it was really cool. Let's own a copy of that. So there's pieces where he's contemplating ideas, and then the set will move back to segue to another interaction, which is very meta, but you never break the fourth wall. It automatically goes to like a phone call. It shows a boss talking to him in reaction to something he had done, and so on and so forth, right? Again, the book is based supposedly on this unauthorized autobiography of Chuck Barris, and it nails a lot of things really, really, really well. In the process of it, he interviews the real life people that were on the Gong shows or had worked on other shows with him. Clooney and whatnot. So that shows up in the film as cutaways, segues. So it definitely tightens up the biography aspect really, really well, rather than telling a straightforward story. It deals with the forest, but also deals with a lot of the weird fucking pressures. There's a great sequence in it where he's looking at these paintings. Sam Rockwell playing Chuck Barris looking at these paintings of images of his life that haunt him, and I thought that was really cool. And there's the tone, even though it's dark humor, and there's a lot of funny sequences in it, a lot of charming interaction. Him and Drew Barrymore work really well off each other. But there's a sequence in the film that comes to like a level of like depression that is just kind of handed to the audience to deal with. And this might explain why some of these films I'm mentioning weren't looked at in this light. Give me a second. So the runtime of the film was 113 minutes, just shy of 2 hours. The budget was $30 million. It made box office $33.1 million. I'm telling you, revisit it. There's a lot of people that are in the film, and it's a great film. There's a lot of weight to the film. Again, if somebody argues with me, I think it's 10, okay. I will accept that. I do think this is a higher ranking film. Again, anything above an 8, in my opinion, is genuinely a good film. It's one to pick up. If you happen to be in a used video store or DVD store, multimedia store, just pick up a copy of it. You probably can find it for like $5 or something like that. And throw it on a DVD. Wait, you don't have one? They really sold you on the idea of not having any disc drives or tangible copies? Yeah, it's interesting. I'm hearing that more and more. And I'm like, why aren't you going? You know you can dictate the market, right? You can go in a different direction. Well, the storage, I know you watch those shows. I know. TV does a lot of interesting shit to us. So the reception to this, to my understanding, was a mixed bag. I got the, on the front, Siskel Ebert, thumbs up, right? But in general, it was always a mixed bag. I think something happened. I know 9/11 happened. I know a lot of weird shit happened. But I think something genuinely was shifted. And again, I keep pointing to 98. But there is something that took place that was not liked with film, even though film was popping out. Because my next film, I know was completely, for some fucked up reason, overlooked. Even though it's this cast is fucking crazy. But I think the weight of real life and the idea of like social commentary was kind of backseated to escapism again. Kind of what they did in the 70s. Right? Let's just show you these flowery, simple films at the time. Even though, again, the 21st century has a lot of great films. For some reason, a good portion of them went overlooked. Like, I'll give you a good example. Well, Brother, Where Art Thou came out. And I know I've talked about this a couple times. And it made money, but it didn't make as much money as No Country for Old Men. Now, granted, there's a lot of things going on with No Country for Old Men, both Coen Brothers films, but for some weird reason, it didn't get the accolades at the time. Same thing with Big Lebowski, which is to think about it now is fucking bizarre. That's why I keep telling you, some of these films are long distance runners. The art will make its money back, given enough time. And sometimes it's loaded really quick. It jumps up the zeitgeist. I mean, No Country for Old Men is a masterpiece. The novel's amazing. The script is, performances of the film amazing. It's a great story. I get that. But so is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, George Clooney's debut, Charlie Kaufman writing, stellar cast. I'll give it a strong 9. Something to check out. The last film came out in, again, checking this out. I should know this right off the top. 2002. So, in the last time I've did this last season, I covered Wonder Boys. A great novel. Michael Chabon's novel. They cut out the whole section with interactions with the wife. She exists in the book. But in all honesty, that detour is like a whole separate story. So the fact they kind of pulled her out of the film makes sense, because really the central part is about the teacher, the stewardship, mentorship in the film, and the pressures of life. This falls into the same category. Actually, recently, Alexander Payne did The Holdovers. So this style of film that kind of came up. Actually, there is a piece, The Paper Chase, the original movie, not the series that was on HBO in the 80s, started this style. And I know With Honors kind of taps into it a little, but it really kind of comes, to fruition with Wonder Boys. This is a movie called Moonlight Mile. And it would be roughly around the same time Jake Gyllenhaal had done, not that far after he did Donnie Darko, which, again, if you watch that, there's two versions. There's the normal cut, director's cut. Watch the director's cut. But in this film, you also have Dustin Hoffman, Susan Sarandon, Holly Hunter. And I know the woman, I don't know her name off the top of my head. She's in Grey's Anatomy. That seemed to be the rest of her career. I don't remember her in any other movies outside of that. I forget she was in this movie until I seen it. I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. I can't remember. Ellen Pompeo, I think that's her name. This is a strong 10. And what I'm going to explain to you about the film is it captures the era, like early 70s. You could have done a couple of different things to tweak it a little, but for the most part, it's just really strong acting. And I realized with the history of violence, and the way the Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, this movie is heavy. There's a lot of shit going on in the film. The emotions right there once you realize what you're engaging. Essentially, and I have to kind of tell you the piece of story. You're not given the event, right? But you hear about the event after the fact. And what happens is a boyfriend of a daughter, Dustin Hoffman and Susan Sarandon characters in the movie. Boyfriend's Jake Gyllenhaal. The daughter had died. And it was fresh. Like, you're brought into the movie, this is the baseline. And throughout the story, you're learning a lot about grief. And it says a lot about grief. A lot about retribution, how to process grief. It's a strong story. Well done, well acted. The scenes are great. The chemistry, Alan Papeo and Jake Gyllenhaal, that is a thing. And the spirit of the main character, the daughter, haunts the film to a certain degree. And again, I just recently watched these films again for this episode. And I'm like, this still clicks exactly the same way I seen it in the theaters. Because I watched it in the theaters and I watched it on, I want to say it was either VHS or DVD again, because VHS was still being in circulation at the time. I rented it again. And we're going, this still works. This still really strong. In my mind, I'm like, you grab a copy of it when I can. I did. I grabbed my own copy of it. So in general, it's a 10. I'll tell you about it didn't make that much money. It actually failed at the box office, which is amazing because the actors tied to this, good actors. Like, limited release was in September 2002, October. Maybe this is where the whole October Death film came from. Like, the problem with October releases, even though I will actually go watch films all year round, but for some reason October does, I think Fight Club failed because of October, right? So the budget was $21 million and it made $10 million back. It's probably made more back. However, I think this one out of the three is the most lost. I think a lot of people didn't watch it. The title of the film comes from the Rolling Stones song, and I don't think a lot of people watched it. And it's one of those films that kind of got pulled to a certain degree. Like, it existed, it had sales. Again, it doesn't seem to be on heavy rotation on stream services, or like even when HBO was cable channel, I didn't necessarily see a lot on that. Like, kind of Wonder Boys, the same kind of falls in the same category, and they actually share the same song. But the Holdovers, right, Alexander Payne kind of fits into the same mechanics. These films show you life is messy, and it adds more nuance to people's lives. Actually, one of the films I was going to cover in this episode that I eventually will open up, if I end up doing a fourth season, the goal was 3. I'm considering 5. But honestly, the feedback and people tuning into this will decide whether I'm going to go past this season. Because 3 seasons, I mean, I think I'm at 32 episodes, 33 episodes altogether. So, fucking bravo. The fact I'm doing this like that, it is what it is. I know it exists in the ether when people are trying to jump onto it, try to figure out what the fuck am I all about. But I was originally going to do John Singleton's Baby Boy, but I realized there's a lot of shit I can unpack, social shit I can unpack. Because I bought a copy of that for my, a fucking uncle I don't like, right? Because the film reminded me so much of him. And I'm like, he's like, throws this crazy racist shit at it, right? Because, it's people, brown black people, skin people in the movie. Can't fucking deal with that, right? So but I said, he said, well, why'd you give me this? I says, it's pretty much almost a mirror. The behavior is very similar. And that says a lot. And I want to kind of dissect that a little. And I was considered that for season 4. So that's why I held off on this. So I decided to give you Moonlight Mile. And I realized watching these films that I'm thinking millennials didn't like. This is actually in the data I read for the first 2 episodes, right? Millennials really had a hard time with heavy weight being thrown at them. I'm not saying all, as a general consensus, because, again, they're the generation that first started doing the let's clean up television, let's make sure they can't get into movie theaters. Let's say, like, it was a great American whitewash. And some of them I've talked to, they became self-aware of that, right? Some of them aren't. And again, I mentioned the art is a carryover. American art, our cultural art is carried over. It should be ingested, taken in, processed, talked about, right? We should be having larger discussions, but what we have right now is a barrier of things. And I want to say maybe one of the reasons why the film industry kind of went a certain way was because they had to simplify everything for this audience. It sounds condescending. But when you have the idea of let's simplify everything earlier on to you, and the acceptance of boy bands and pre-manufactured superstars and all that as a larger cultural shift, even though it was rejected by Gen X, eventually, like really fast actually, but yet we're able to jump onto laurels of this other, it was really strange, right? This is what the strong, firm argument was like, hey, there's millennials, which is between 79 and 84, and they're millennials too. I don't think that, but I'm trying to create an argument for that. No, I think they're Gen X. But they were also sewed into the idea of a lot of these weird boy bands and soda pop stars and these people are manufactured by these large companies to be perfect. And when they fall apart and implode, they're also the ones that realize that Ricky Lake and Jerry Springer might be the talk show venue, even though if you're old enough, you realize that is just wrestling via talk show, because Geraldo Rivera exists, or Jerry Rivers, whatever you want to call him. He exists. And so I'm saying all that again, reiterating all that again, I've said in the last few episodes. But I'm also pointing out that these films existed and kind of went sideways. They weren't recognized or noted. And I think that's interesting, because I think the focus was other things. Whatever weird, like, cinephiles or people that were really into film were not really focusing on this stuff at this point in time. Another thing, too, I do know. Around this time, I know if you didn't have an accidental kid as a teenager, as a Gen Xer, you were probably having kids at this point in time. You're trying to make your bones do all that stuff. And that is the weird adult isolation process that kind of exists in our culture. This is a 10. This film's a 10. And it was, I think, written and directed by the same person. Brad Silberling. Sorry. Haven't heard it pronounced, so if I butchered your name, I apologize. But you did a great job with the film. Again, just shy of 2 hours. It's 117 minutes. Probably can get a copy. I don't think this is streaming right now, but it might. Just punch it into your intellectual TVs and see what comes out. But understand, you're locked into grief. And I think the weird thing about it is, like, we don't want tragedy porn. Life happens a specific way. And sometimes shit happens sideways. Things don't necessarily marry to themselves. The real world, which I think this represents really well, doesn't operate the way you think it operates. That's the problem I have with a lot of television, actually. It shows so much functionalism when things, just to make sure the episodes work. Like, remember somebody tried selling me on the CSI stuff. Like, CSI, well, procedural shows. Yeah, but guess what? There's equipment on those shows that don't exist, or the cops would not have access to that stuff. They don't have a Tony Stark fucking lab. Sorry. The military might, and even then it has to be up echelon military, like Green Berets or like Navy SEALs, because that's just how it is, or Rangers, or CIA, something like that. And like even the whole fucking Friends thing, which I thought was a big pile of shit, that's like, I looked at that like, again. But what's weird is millennials bought onto that. They were like, they made that show fucking popular. Like crazy popular. And it's a big pile of shit. It's a cheaper version of, there was a movie, Reality Bites. Ben Stiller's, I think it's a directorial debut. And it was kind of like a chomp on that, but you're not living the way you're living in a very weird, like you portray like Caucasians in a very strange fucking way. And I don't necessarily, again, something happened in the mid-'80s that created that environment, and most of the television shows I just thought were just big piles of shit. I watch them, I watch people watch them and react to them, and they still have laugh tracks in order to fucking cue you like a Pavlovian dog. I never understood that. Film is a different beast, created by a different structure. Currently right now it's under heavy fucking attack, but there's still good stuff that comes out, which is amazing to me, right? So needless to say, those are the three films, another set of three films from the 21st century I suggest you to check out. Moonlight Mile, which is a strong 10. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which is a 9. And A History of Violence, which is an 8. And here we are. Next episode's going to be about tolerance versus intolerance. You know, me meandering, fucking, talk about that. But hey, there's a lot of crazy shit happening in Minnesota right now. So you tell me what's up. Because for the most part, that looks like the Miami model being restructured and weaponized by an agency that probably shouldn't exist at all. Now, what's funny is I think a lot of people tuning in expect me to have like iron fist talking about the Trump administration. I'm actually trying to address the larger issue. Because the pattern, if we're able to shit the villainy of this administration out of our American asshole, you know, and gauze the bleeding, maybe sew it up a little, we still have the larger problems. Because it's funny because Democrats are willingly going with this. There's a few of them aren't, the ones that I voted for, but it's interesting how this is all playing out. And what's really being tested in a larger world stage is essentially our American exceptionalism. Because they were expecting us to react. I think we're reacting, but I think it's a silent burning that's going on right now. I think the midterms is going to be the real big test. And you're like thinking, well, the vote and all that. The vote, just the chaos that's going to ensue probably next summer because of this. Because this person has already verbally said, well, maybe we can tie up the elections with this. And that is absolutely insane. Because that means their goal is to abolish the democratic theory that exists within the framework of the republic. Now, granted, they've been chiseling away at it for many years, but that's what that means. So, tolerance versus intolerance is a thing. I will say something else too. A few more movies that I've recently checked out. I've grinded through. I finally seen Alien Romulus. That was pretty good. Strong film. I'm still mulling the numbers around in my head. Is this thing on? I watched recently. I know it's probably in the A block. Again, I recorded these two parts differently, at different points of time. This is going out today, so you'll be listening to my bullshit today. And what was the other film? F1. I like that a lot too. That came out pretty well. It's a big budget film, tentpole film. I probably would have liked to see it on a large screen like in theaters, but in this situation I couldn't. Something happened around that time they came out. I wasn't able to catch it. Life got busy. Anyway, which way? Enjoy your time. Until next time. This has been A Fistful of Fuckery, episode 6.